Welcome in to the Ghost Show. Today I'm going to be telling you a story called The Tale of Antonio's Abduction. Antonio was just an ordinary guy living in a small town, working the normal 9 to 5 at a hardware store. But on one night, everything changed for Antonio. It was around midnight when Antonio was driving home after a late shift. The roads were empty, not a soul to be found. The sky was clear. The moon hung like a ghostly lantern above the horizon. He was nearly home when all of a sudden a bright light washed over his car, blinding him. His heart started pounding, and before he could even process what was happening, everything went dark. When Antonio regained consciousness, he found himself in a sterile white room, lying on a strange table. His body ached, his head throbbed. He had no idea where he was. Slowly he sat up and looked around. The walls were smooth and shiny, unlike anything he'd ever seen in his whole life. In the distance, he heard the faint hum of machinery. Before he could call out or make sense of his surroundings, a soft voice echoed in his mind. It wasn't a voice, though, that he could hear with his ears, but it felt like it came from deep within his thoughts. "You are safe. We mean no harm to you." He froze. He wasn't alone. A figure then emerged from the shadows. The son of a gun was tall, thin, with a shimmering, silver-like skin that seemed to shimmer under the dim lights. The being's face was elongated, its large black eyes reflecting a kind of wisdom that felt beyond human comprehension. It did not speak with its mouth, guys. Instead, its thoughts. It sent thoughts directly into Antonio's mind without speaking. "We are the Varians. You have been chosen for observation," said the alien. "You will not be harmed," it said. Antonio, still in shock, tried to move, but his body felt strangely weak, as though gravity was pressing down on him harder than normal. "Why me?" he thought, his mind racing with confusion and fear. As you can imagine. The Varian paused, then replied, "You are not unlike us, Antonio. We have watched your kind for many, many cycles now. You are on the brink of great change." For the next few days, Antonio was subjected to various experiments. They didn't hurt him, but they were strange and unnerving, for sure. They studied his body, his thoughts, and even his emotions. He learned that the Varians were peaceful explorers who had been traveling through the universe for millennia. They didn't conquer planets. They observed, learned, and helped where needed. They had seen humanity's potential, and that's why they selected Antonio. Though initially frightened, Antonio began to find comfort in their company. They didn't speak much, but they allowed him to explore the ship, which was a marvel of alien engineering. It was a massive vessel, freaking huge, much larger than anything human technology could produce. The walls were alive with subtle movement, shifting to accommodate the needs of the ship and its inhabitants. It was clear the ship wasn't just a machine. It was an organism, breathing and shifting in harmony with the Varians. As the days passed, Antonio began to feel a strange connection with these guys. He learned that their faces didn't have emotions in the same way that humans did, but they could sense and understand them deeply. They helped Antonio confront some of his deepest fears. for sure, and even showed him glimpses of future events. Things that were about to happen in the near future. The visions were overwhelming, but they also gave him clarity about his life on Earth. On one night, he sat out there, gazing out there at a large observation window. Antonio saw something that took his breath away. A vast nebula stretching across the starry expanse, its colors swirling in mesmerizing patterns. He realized he was just not witnessing the beauty, but that son of a gun, Antonio, he was a part of it. The universe was far bigger than he'd ever imagined, and he'd been given a glimpse into its wonders. At this point, it's been about a month Antonio's been in the spaceship. After the month, everything changed, though. On one morning, the Varians gathered around him. Their leader, a being with eyes that glowed faintly blue, communicated one final message. It is time for you to return, Antonio. Your world awaits you now. You are ready. Antonio didn't understand what the heck they meant, but he felt it deep within himself. He was changed forever. The experience had altered his perception of everything. The fear, the confusion, all of it had now melted away. He wasn't the same person who had been abducted from Earth a month ago. The next thing Antonio knew, he was back on the road, driving down when it all started. The sky was still dark, and the moon still hung above him. The car was parked just as it had been. It was like nothing ever happened, except for the profound sense that filled him. He felt as though he had touched the infinite. For the rest of his life, Antonio kept the memory of his time with the Variants close to his heart. He didn't share it with anyone. He wasn't sure anyone would believe him anyways. But he knew that somewhere out there, beyond the stars, there were beings who watched over humanity. And he knew, without a doubt, that Earth was not the only home in the universe. Every now and again, every little gander here and there, as he lay underneath the night sky, Antonio would look up at the stars and wonder if the Varians were still out there watching him. And in his heart, he knew that they were. The end. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want more videos like this, comment down below. Question I want to know: was this a true story, or was Antonio just waking up from a dream? The end.